Hi, I'm Andrew Scheps, and I mix records for a living. I've been very lucky. I've managed to work with a lot of bands. I've worked with Adele and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Metallica and a bunch of other people. And in 2014, I was transitioning my mixing setup from a real kind of setup in a studio thing to a I need to move around thing. So I had an HDX2 system, and I needed a way to have those cards come with me in something that would be small enough to put in a backpack, that would keep the cards nice and cool even if I wasn't in a controlled environment, and would be rugged enough that while it was in the backpack things weren't going to break and it would just work. It was also right when Thunderbolt 2 was coming around, so I really wanted to take advantage of that because the idea of being PCI on a piece of cable, I knew I wasn't going to give up any performance. And the Echo Express 3D turned out to be the perfect thing, and I am still using it. So the transition I was making was not only from being all set up in one place to being able to move around, but it was also from a Mac Pro to a MacBook Pro. So the great thing about having the Thunderbolt connectivity was it was one cable. And if I was home and I was going to use the Mac Pro, one cable. Unplug that cable, bring the chassis with me, plug it into the MacBook Pro. Or use that chassis on anyone else's computer with Thunderbolt, just plug it in, I've got my cards, I've got everything set up the way I want, and I'm ready to go. Since 2014, when I first started using the chassis, things have obviously moved on a little bit. Now I'm on a MacBook Pro with Thunderbolt 3. I'm actually using an HD native card with a UAD Octo card, and I've never had to do anything other than put the cards in the chassis. And then recently, I actually did the Thunderbolt 3 upgrade myself. Got sent the card, took about it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes, and I had Thunderbolt 3 up and running. And then I was actually in a situation where I needed Thunderbolt 2, and I popped the old card back in, hooked it up to an older Mac Pro that I was working at a studio that's what they had, then popped the Thunderbolt 3 card back in when I got home, and completely seamless. One of the other great things about the chassis is how quiet it is now. When I first got the chassis, it was pretty quiet, but now it's even quieter, and what that lets you do is set up in really unorthodox situations and have the chassis right next to you. So one of the great things about the Thunderbolt 2 was you could get an optical cable and put the chassis across the room. Now with Thunderbolt 3, that's not as easy to do, but I don't have a problem with having the chassis sit right next to me on the table. Another great thing about Sonnet is how responsive they are. There was a time when it seemed like everybody in the world had lots of bad Thunderbolt 2 cables and made things very hard to troubleshoot. But Sonnet was great. They got on the phone with me right away, even at a difficult time of year during the holiday season, and we sorted everything out, did some great troubleshooting over the phone, and I didn't lose any time at all.